Hey there, welcome back to the vlog. It's Abby, and today I'm going to be doing an in-depth reading wrap-up for the books that I read in July. This video is going to be filled with spoilers, as I'm going to be really getting to the nitty-gritty about what I thought about all of the books that I read in July. So, if you haven't read any of these books, they're the ones I'm going to be talking about, and there will be spoilers for them. The first book that I read this month was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Maybe this is a controversial opinion, I'm not exactly sure, but I think this is maybe my least favorite Emily Henry book. I know. If it's not my least favorite, it's close to it, and that's saying a lot. I still gave it 4 out of 5 stars, a 7.7 out of 10 on my Ka-Pile scale. Here's the thing. I am not a huge fan of non-linear timelines. Any book that has a non-linear timeline is automatically something that is not my favorite. And that's because I kind of have a short attention span for it, maybe. Whenever I want to know what's going on in the plot, I want to know what's going on in the plot. I don't care about what happened. And the thing is I know that for the story that she is telling, you need the non-linear timeline. I fully understand that the story is not the same without jumping between the past and the present, but I don't like it. I don't like that. It really makes it hard for me to stay focused, to stay engaged. There were several times where I was like, dang, I want to read something else, which is shocking for Emily Henry because chef's kiss. I read Funny Story and Book Lovers the month before in June, and those two are fantastic. No notes. So for me to immediately follow it up with People We Meet on Vacation and being a little disappointed kind of sucks. Let's get into a little bit more depth about People We Meet on Vacation. We have our main characters, Poppy and Alex. Poppy is a travel blogger and Alex is a high school teacher, and from the time when they're young, they go on vacation with each other every summer, and then they have this big falling out, and now they are trying to rekindle their friendship by going on another vacation to Alex's brother's wedding. Well, everything kind of blew up at this trip to Croatia, and so now, Poppy's trying to get back in with Alex. She slowly realizes she's in love with him. Alex has been in love with her the whole time, yada, yada, yada. Classic story. For the point of the story to be focusing on this relationship between Poppy and Alex, I felt like as characters, there wasn't very much going on. As personality, there wasn't very much going on. They were very one note. Poppy is charismatic and wants to do all these things, and then Alex is bland and monotone, very one note that way. And I think it was trying to be like an opposites attract situation, but it just didn't make sense to me. They didn't make sense to me personally. I feel like in a lot of Emily Henry stories, I can see how the romance develops. I can see how it makes sense. In this one, it doesn't to me. And I guess we have to focus on the fact that they have years of history together, and that's the reason that they like each other, but is that enough? I'm not sure. Now, we know that Emily Henry's writing is always beautiful. It is something that I can almost always give her a 9 or 10 out of 10 for. I think that she just has a way with words. She's very funny, she's very witty. I do find her work easy to read, fun to read. All of that to say, I think the book is fine. I think it's good, generally speaking. It's just one of my least favorites from Emily Henry. One thing that I always like to do whenever I am writing in my reading journal is pull out 1, maybe 2 quotes that I want to remember from the book. And here's the quote that I pulled out for People We Meet on Vacation. Maybe things can always get better between people who want to do a good job loving each other. Maybe that's all it takes. Moving on. The next book that I read in July is The Viscount Who Loved Me the second book in the Bridgerton series. And I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, a 7.14 on my Compile scale. My first thought is I was shocked at how different the book was compared to the show. After reading The Duke and I, which was very different from the first season of Bridgerton, I expected it to be different, but not so fundamentally, I feel like. This is definitely one of those instances where the book is not as good as the show. I think that's pretty much true for all of the Bridgerton books thus far. The show gives a lot more substance to the characters than the book does. The books in general really focus in on the couple that it is about, while the show, gives you all the side characters, really develops everyone out, and that is something that is admirable that you don't normally get from a TV show book adaptation ever. So kudos to Netflix, even if they changed the plot quite significantly. So the first thing is Edwina's not really a love interest for Anthony. Like, he goes and he tries to court her, but then it's kind of like immediately shut down. Like, there are several times where it's like, oh, the intention is that he's going to court Edwina because she's the diamond of the season, or whatever that means, because Lady Whistledown's not even really that relevant, to be honest. She just starts every chapter. But so, Anthony's trying to court Edwina. Kate does not want him to, and just keeps getting in the way, and then, obviously they fall in love. Anthony is obviously kind of a misogynist, which, we expect from this Regency era book. There's a lot of things that don't pass the vibe check in here, for sure. However, I did think that I liked Anthony's internal monologue. I think he was a lot more open and raw about his feelings, to be honest, in his internal monologue than it seems like he was in the television show. Since we're getting dual POVs, we're getting Anthony's sides of things and Kate's side of things. I personally feel like Anthony fell before Kate. She was very going with the flow. Yes, she felt some attraction to him, but he was down bad from the jump. Friends, down bad. Even though I think he fell first, I think Kate fell harder after they were married. Something that I love about the Bridgerton books compared to the show is that we typically get a glimpse of what their married lives look like. I really enjoyed the POV of married life with Anthony and Kate. Here's something that I was surprised by, and I think it's like a through line on all of the Bridgerton books thus far, is being sort of forced into marriage because of complicated situations. So we know in The Duke and I, if you've read The Duke and I or you've seen the TV show, that Daphne has to marry the Duke because she is caught in a compromising situation with him and now is forced to marry him. Okay, in the Viscount Who Loved Me, in the scene where Kate gets stung by the bee and Anthony has a panic attack because his father died by being stung by a bee, he's trying to suck the poison out of the bee sting, which is on her chest. And then, of course, they're caught in the garden in that compromising position, and he's like, all right, well, I guess we're getting married because I'm a man of honor. And everybody in the freaking mama sees it, and it's like, what were you thinking in the first place? But it happens again. They are caught in a compromising situation, so now they have to get married. And Kate's like, LOL, no thanks, I'm good. And I'm a spinster, it's fine. And Anthony's like, you're gonna marry me. We're getting married. I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was pretty funny. I am so happy that it wasn't like the show where we got to an awkward wedding situation between Anthony and Edwina. That didn't happen. Edwina's not a character. She barely exists in this season. I found Daphne to be more charming. I like Benedict. I like Colin. I like the banter there. Here's the quote that I pulled out from the Viscount Who Loved Me. Can we guess what it is? Similar to the monologue from the show. And then there was Kate Sheffield, the bane of his existence and the object of his desires, all at once. Chef's kiss. Continuing along in the Bridgerton books, it's going to be a little bit of a trend this month, is An Offer from a Gentleman. And I have read 4 of the Bridgerton books so far, and this one has to be my favorite. I love Benedict and Sophia's story. I gave this 4 stars, 8.7 out of 10 on the Copile scale, and I loved it. Despite this book being an obvious Cinderella retelling, with Sophie being the unwanted child, getting a stepmother, 2 step siblings, drama llama llama there, basically treating her like a maid. Then we have the fairy godmother, main house maid, who's like, Sophie, you're going to the Bridgerton masquerade. It's happening, yes sir. She goes, gets all fancied up. It's a costume party masquerade, so she can dress in like old-timey Regency clothes. And she goes to the party, meets Benedict, never tells him who she is, has to run away by midnight. And he loves her. He goes to their house and he's like, I found this glove. It's not a shoe, it's a glove. The stepmother finds out that it's Sophie, kicks her out, fires her, get out of here. And so she runs away to the country. Well, then we time skip 2 years later. Benedict's at some frat party, basically. Sophie's put in a very compromising position. He rescues her. He's her prince, her knight in shining armor. And they go away to his cottage house in the country. And he gets sick. And of course, there's the classic, I'm nursing you back to health, which I love a trope. I love one of us is sick and we gotta nurse each other back to health trope. It's one of my favorite things to see in like manga, in anime, is when the one love interest is sick and the other one has to help. Here's a forehead fever reducing pack. Here's my tissues. Love it. So Sophie nurses Benedict back to health. There is some cute banter between them. I love Sophie. I think she has the most personality out of any of the women love interests thus far. So eventually Benedict starts kind of acting controlling, as all the Bridgerton boys do at some point or another, and sort of blackmails Sophie to come back to London because he wants her to be his mistress. Benedict does not know that Sophie is the bastard of a gentleman. He just thinks that she's a maid. And so he thinks that he cannot marry her because of her status, and so he wants her to be his mistress. Well, since Sophie's mom was the mistress of her father, she's like, I will be nobody's mistress. I will not have bastard children. And Benedict blackmails Sophie and says, you're coming to London with me to be my mistress, or you could be my mom's maid. That whole situation is cuckoo bonkers. Like, the math isn't mathing that Benedict's like, yeah, no big deal. You can be my mistress. No problem at all. Like, the whole time I'm sitting there looking at this like, is this man for real? Is he so serious right now? Especially when he already thinks that Sophie's got something going on. Like, that there's something sus. She speaks French and Latin and stuff. Why? She's gotta be somebody's noble something. You know what I mean? And his mom, Lady Violet Bridgerton, is always on to everything that's going down with her children because she knows that there's something up with Sophie. She knows she's not who she says she is. They go back to London and Sophie is seen by her stepsister, who tells her stepmom. And now all hell breaks loose because when Sophie ran away to the country, she stole fake gem clips that were supposed to be on a shoe, stole them and pawned them so she could make some money. And so stepmom has her arrested and thrown in prison. Something I was not expecting. I mean, I knew they had to include the stealing thing detail for something later on, but I was shocked. I was really not expecting. I can't wait to see how this translates to the TV show whenever it comes out. So she gets into prison, and of course Benedict's like, Mom, I'm marrying her no matter her status. And Violet's like, yes, please do it. And so they go to like break her out of prison. Violet pops off with all this like legal jargon and stuff about like stealing inheritance, all of this crazy stuff that goes down, and Mama Violet Bridgerton lays down the law and gets her out of the situation. Like, Violet Bridgerton popped off. I cannot stress this enough. I really thought that the whole prison jail time series of events really upped the stakes in a way that it felt like none of the other Bridgerton books had. You know, you expect the duel scene in The Duke and I to be very high stakes and to feel like, you know, anxious about or something, and I didn't feel that at all. It just sort of like, it was anticlimactic. I felt like the Sophie prison jailbreak scene was very climactic, and it was a great way to get towards the end of the book. One of my favorite things about the book as a whole is it, to me, is the most convincing love story. I think that, especially in The Duke and I and The Viscount Who Loved Me, they were in these like entrapment situations. They were in a, oh, we're caught in a compromising situation, we'll grow to love each other. I felt like they liked each other a lot from the jump. Obviously at the masquerade ball, they seem to have a real connection, but more than that, when they're spending their one-on-one time in the cottage, when they get to London and they have this awkward banter between each other, I really felt like it's a real development of feelings for each other, which is another reason why it was more one of my favorites and why I ranked it much higher than a lot of the other Bridgerton books. Needless to say, my favorite of the Bridgerton books thus far. I still have 3 to go, but it's my favorite thus far. Now it's time to talk about my least favorite Bridgerton book, which is the next one that I read, To Sir Philip with Love. 3 stars, 6.8 out of 10 on the Cop-Isle scale. I am shocked. I'm genuinely shocked by how bad this book was. For Eloise to be such an interesting character. She's a woman from higher society in England during the Regency era, but she reads and she's knowledgeable and she wants something greater and wants something more. And the entire plot is Philip wants her to be his wife just so she could be the mom to his kids. That's the plot. That's the story. That's it. That's all it is. It just felt so out of character for Eloise. It didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It felt like Julia Quinn nerfed her entirely. I was down with the initial premise that it was like they were falling in love through writing letters, and whenever Sir Philip offers the proposal to come out to his country house and see if they're a match and maybe could get married, I was kind of down with that premise because they had been writing letters back and forth for a year, and she's expressing how, and she's showing how intelligent she is and how well written, how well read she is through these letters. And she gets there and Philip is like, I didn't keep any letters, I don't remember anything that we talked about in them. Be so for real. As a match, Philip and Eloise don't make any sense to me at all. Philip is a botanist, and so he's obviously knowledgeable about plants and things, but it seems like he doesn't care for any other areas of study or expertise, which you would think would be something that Eloise would match with. He doesn't like to have conversations, which Eloise loves to talk, which you'd think that like yapper and quiet works together. He wanted her to shut up. He wanted her to stop talking. And it just is like an odd coupling for me personally. Philip's got mad anger issues. I know that comes from his childhood trauma with his dad, and then his trauma surrounding his first wife Maria and her depression, which I think is, as an aside, I think the characterization of Maria's depression is grossly oversimplified, and I don't know if I think it was handled very well by the author. It's funny because I felt like the children, Philip's children, had more personality than Eloise and more personality than Philip. Heck, Colin and Benedict and Gregory and Anthony show up after Eloise has been there for a few days, and they have more personality than it seems like Philip and Eloise have, which is crazy because in all the other books thus far, Eloise has been such a strong presence for a side character. And so I was genuinely thrown by that. And the fact that after they get married, Philip's like, we have a great sex life. She's a great mother to my children. What more could I want in a wife? You married Eloise Bridgerton. What do you mean? And don't even get me started on the fact that they got married because Anthony was like, compromising position. You gotta get married now. And Eloise is just like, I hope we fall in love. And she does fall in love with him, although I cannot see why. It does not make any sense to me that they fall in love. Like, they don't have anything in common, nothing about it makes sense. At no point did I find Philip likable. At no point was I like kicking my feet or, you know, swooning or any of that. No, sir, not in this one. Here's to hoping that Netflix saves this story and makes it better, the way they've done with the other ones. Fingers crossed. Here's the quote that I pulled out. Maybe it had taken all of her 28 years to come to this realization, but men were quite simply freaks. Sums it up pretty well. The next book that I read was our book club book of the month. I run a book club on Discord, so if you want to join, let me know. Our pick of the month was A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson, and I gave it 4 stars, barely 4 stars, 7.14. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that should be lower because I definitely liked The Viscount Who Loved Me, which was also a 7.14. It's crazy that they're the same. You know, when I initially wrote up in my journal my thoughts about A Talent for Murder, I was a lot more generous with my thoughts than I ended up being at our book club discussion. I kind of tore it apart. There are a lot of things about this that kind of make it really boring. Let's get into it. So we have Martha, who has a husband who is a teacher goofy poster t-shirt supply man who goes to these teacher conferences where he's trying to sell his like catchy posters or t-shirts or pins or buttons or whatever. His name is Alan. Well, Martha suspects that Alan is a serial killer because at several of the conferences he's gone to, there have been mysterious deaths in the city or close to where the conference is being held. And so she thinks that he is a serial killer. Martha is like, I gotta talk to someone about this. So she calls someone she hasn't spoken to in 10 years. His friend, Lily, helped her get out of a relationship in college with this sexual sadist named Ethan. Don't forget him, he comes back up later. Martha and Lily are trying to do this investigation into Alan to see if he's committing these murders. And so Lily goes and tails Alan at the next conference that he's at. Lo and behold, there's somebody else tailing Alan. There's someone else that's stalking him up. Who is it? We met him earlier, Ethan. And he's like, Lily, what are you doing here? Haha, you're on to me. Well, I gotta get out of here. Well, where does he go? To kill Martha. Right? That's the only twist. Let's get into how that was the only part that I was like, oh my god. Then we get into part 2, which opens with Ethan's POV, where he talks about the first murder that he did. He murdered his grandpa, and then about all of his other murders. There's like a quick, like, high-level look at other people that he's murdered. And then we focus in on his obsession with Martha, where he saw on Facebook that she married Alan. And so he decides, I'm gonna mess with her by following this guy around and killing people behind him and trying to frame him for murder and get him arrested, because oh my god, wouldn't it be so funny to see the look on Martha's face if her husband got arrested for murder? Well, then we catch up to the present where he sees Lily, knows that they're like on to him, and so he goes and he murders Martha. He doesn't even get the satisfaction of her like finding out if he's a serial killer or not. So then Ethan's in the wind. He's fled. And Lily gets in with this guy, Henry, from her past, and is trying to figure out where Ethan is. She does some digging into his past, finds out about his interests from high school, which is art, more specifically art dealing. And she just happens to Google a few keywords together and finds out what his alias is for a different life where he's married and has this business and everything. And goes and like finds out all this information about Ethan. Finds out of what all of his aliases are, which, mind you, we've skipped over some, like, the author skips over some details. Like, does not really explain in some ways how Lily figures out who Ethan's aliases are. We follow her figuring out his art dealer alias, but then he has another one that's like where he hides his property, and there's no explanation of how she figured that out. So Ethan kidnaps Lily because she's an idiot and walks a few miles into town without her phone by herself, and so lo and behold, he just happens upon her and kidnaps her and straps her to a table. And so now we switch to Henry's POV, who's trying to figure out where Lily has been taken. While we got the how do we figure out the alias of the art dealer Ethan through Lily, now we get the how Henry figures out that second alias, which is connected to where Ethan is holding Lily. But what I don't understand is how did Lily figure out that second alias in the first place? Because her internal monologue is like, I hope Henry finds out that this is his third alias. And it's like, how did you figure that out? Just Googling stuff. You know, it took Henry going into the databases of stuff, like hacking in, right? Of tricking people and talking to people, and Lily just figures it out via Google. Make that make sense. So then Lily cuts herself so that she can make it look like she's dead, and then she murders Ethan with a rusty nail or something. Henry finds her, that's the end, right? Wrong. I should have said that the book opens with a prologue about this girl named Josie who gets murdered at one of these teacher conferences where she is thrown from the balcony. In Ethan's If I Did It chapter, he doesn't mention Josie. He mentions how he kills all the other people, but not the Josie that we meet at the beginning of the book. Well, the final chapter is Alan's chapter, where we learn that he threw Josie off the roof. So yes, he was a murderer the whole time, even though all the other murderers were by Ethan. And so it's like, well, Martha, you're right. Your man was a killer. He threw a lady off. And then we get Lily like catching Alan and pretending to be a ghost because he's having like a psychotic break, and he flings himself off of the balcony and dies as well. So that's the plot, right? Here's where we get into my issues with this craziness. Every character is so one-dimensional, is so flat. I didn't care about any of them, not a single soul. Honestly, the murderer, Ethan, was more interesting, but he also lacked substance as well. It was just like, his character trait was arrogance. And Martha's internal monologue was just so bland and boring. And the same with Lily. I thought maybe Lily was supposed to be like neurodivergent, but internet consensus says that she's not, that she's just like a bland person. And so that was like a knock in points. Then we have just the story beats. Something that I want out of a mystery whodunit type book, murder mystery whodunit type book, is I want to be able to figure it out. Like, I want the clues in the book to help me piece it together before the reveal of how it happened. Well, in A Talent for Murder, Swanson follows every surprise up with, here's how I did it. Martha gets murdered. The next chapter is Ethan's, here's how I murdered her. Here's how I did everything. Lily pretends to stab herself and Ethan finds her and she stabs him and all that jazz. The next chapter, here's how I did it. Lily POV edition. And it's like, I feel like the book would have been a lot better if we got the part 1 where it's Martha trying to figure everything out, she gets murdered. Then we pick up with Lily's investigation, trying to figure out who did it and why. And if she already thinks that it's Ethan, sure, that's fine. She does all of her research, figures out about his aliases and everything. And then like the last chapter should be Ethan's, here's how I did it. Here's what happened. Blah, blah, blah. Because I just feel like event happens, immediately here's how it happens. Event happens, immediately here's how it happens. And it never gives the audience, it never gives the reader time to try to figure that out for themselves. You get the answer immediately. And so it feels just like a little bit less satisfying. Now I have a criticism of the writing as a whole. In fact, the writing was the worst part about this book. You know, I just mentioned like story structure or something, but the writing could be better. I have never read such useless descriptions of things. And I mean that in the way that, for example, Lily's going to take a bath. Plot relevant? No. Going to take a bath or is in the bathroom or something. Obviously not plot relevant because I don't remember the exact details. But we spent an entire page describing her cat. What does that have to do with the plot? It didn't even add anything to just general atmosphere or ambiance. It was just, here's a page about her being in the bathroom with the cat coming in. And that's just an example, but that sort of thing is throughout the entire book, where we just have these unnecessary tangents that don't contribute to the overall plot, they don't contribute to the vibes, they don't contribute to really anything. And so it just feels like a waste of time. And it made me desperately want to DNF. If this had not been my book club book, I wouldn't have read it. I would have put it down, truthfully. Yeah, I would have DNF'd it. But I didn't. Here's the quote that I pulled out for A Talent for Murder. The man moved inhumanly quick, the knife piercing her throat so fast that she didn't even have time to say his name. That's the only notable part of that book for me personally. The next book that I read this month is Sasaki and Miyano First Years. This is a novella that sort of covers the first couple volumes of the manga. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, a 6.86 out of 10, and I found this book hard to review because it's more like a collection of short stories about all the different characters from the manga, especially the side characters. This is giving more substance to a lot of the side characters. So we really, if I recall, we only get 1 chapter with Sasaki and 1 chapter with Miyano, and the rest are all different POVs from the side characters, from Miyano's friends, from Sasaki's friends, from just different people that we met throughout the first couple volumes of the manga. It was interesting how we got to see the interactions of Sasaki and Miyano through the eyes of their friends, but honestly it kind of made the friends seem dull and very much like so many people were like, that's none of my business. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, it would be so much more entertaining if you made it your business. The only POV that I actually liked was Hirono's POV. Everyone else is forgettable in the fact that I don't even remember their names. In fact, I can't even really think of what happened in this story. Yeah, I don't know how to like describe the plot because it was basically just POV of this character, POV of this character, POV of this character during the same period of time. So we get the fight with Miyano's friend, Sasaki joining in to help rescue him from the fight, stuff with the disciplinary committee. What else happens? I don't remember. Overall, it was just kind of weird. If you watched my August TBR video, you'll know that I plan on reading Sasaki and Miyano's second years in this month, but I don't know, it was weird. I think, it's short. I enjoy the story of Sasaki and Miyano, so I'm gonna consume the media, but just a little weird. The quote that I pulled out. I wonder how I'm supposed to find something that gives life meaning. The next 5 books that I read were manga. They were graphic novels for My Love Mix-Up. And instead of talking about each individual one, I'm just going to kind of overview the story of volumes 1 through 5 and just know that I gave them all 4 stars. Every single individual manga got 4 stars. All sitting right around 8 out of 10 or so. So we have our main character, Aoki, who is borrowing an eraser from his crush, who sits next to him, who is borrowing an eraser from his crush, Hashimoto. He sees that there is the name Ida with a little heart on it carved into the eraser. He drops it. The guy who sits in front of him, his name is Ida, and he picks up the eraser and is like, yo, Aoki, you have my name with a heart on it carved into your eraser. So he immediately thinks, oh my god, Aoki has a crush on me. Well, because Aoki is such a great guy and doesn't want to out Hashimoto for her crush on Ida, he's like, yep, that's mine. That's my eraser. I do have a crush on you. And so they go to the roof. Aoki does this sort of like fake confession. And Ida's like, I'm gonna give this some serious thought. I can't just reject you. No one's ever confessed to me before. I have to give this some serious consideration. We're eating over here. Grubbing on this plot. It's called My Love Mix-Up. This is what happens. It's a mix-up. So then there's like several chapters where it is this sort of like awkward moments between Aoki and Ida where it's like misunderstandings where Ida thinks, oh, this is Aoki like crushing on me, and where Ida's just being so sweet, and so that's making Aoki be like, oh, he's such a great guy, And then we have a classic for BL manga, which is cross-dressing, where they're putting on for the school festival Cinderella, and Ida plays the prince and Aoki plays Cinderella and is cross-dressing, and it's a trope that those of us who are BL fans will eat up. We love that. Then we get quips and jokes from the boys at the school, and so that makes them all like insecure, but Aoki's like embracing it like it's a joke, and Ida's like, no, this is serious, stop joking. And of course, like all of these little interactions is making Aoki be like, okay, maybe I actually do like him. I never thought about like liking a guy before, but maybe I do like him. All of that happens in just the first volume. So then the plot keeps going on. So we find out that Hashimoto's crush isn't actually Ida, it's Ada, A-I-D-A. And just the A had been erased off on the eraser. And so Ada, being a friend to Aoki, is like, hey Ida, this was all just a misunderstanding about this eraser. I've cleaned it all up for you. Ada's like, oh, I'm a great guy, I've cleaned everything up. And Hashimoto has a crush on him, and that just makes her, like him more because, he's such a funny, cool guy, right? And it's so nice to her. Meanwhile, Aoki's like, oh man, this misunderstanding, this mix-up has been clarified, so now Ida thinks that I don't actually like him, but I do. The drama. Meanwhile, the mangaka does the funniest faces. Aoki's faces throughout all of these volumes is so funny. You have to he's just hilarious. And especially when we're in these like dramatic moments and he's just like melting, it is very entertaining. So there's this weird ski trip that they go on that I don't even know how to begin to explain the plot because it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But it's at this ski trip that Aoki confesses to Ida that he really does like him. And Ida's like, well, why don't we try dating? Have you ever in your life read a BL that was so to the point, so direct? We were talking about Sasaki and Miyano. It took like 10 volumes to get a confession, okay, from Miyano, okay? They're just gonna try dating, and Ida doesn't know if he likes Aoki yet. He likes him as a human, but doesn't know if he likes him, you know? And so they are gonna try dating, and they go on a date, and they see a movie that Aoki picks out for Ida just because it has a dog that looks like his dog, and it's just so cute. And really, it's just like a cute little back and forth of them trying to figure out what does dating even mean, especially between two guys in Japan where being out is not a thing. And Hashimoto confesses her feelings for Ada, and he turns her down. Poor thing. Because I was definitely getting the vibes between the two of them, but he turns her down. So sad. They don't make me wait long because Ida, who didn't know how he felt about Aoki, gives us a MFN confession, baby. He tells Aoki that he likes him. In the 4th volume, people, in the 4th volume. When do you ever see that? Me, someone who's read a significant amount of BL manga. No shame in the game. It never happens this quickly. There was something in this volume that I specifically remember that I'm not a huge fan of, is it's like a trope in just any romance manga to have the main couple like break up or stop talking right before Christmas, because in Japan Christmas is more like a Valentine's Day. It's like a couple-y holiday. It's such like a common thing to have the main couple like stop talking or break up right before Christmas so they don't get to have their like lovey-dovey time. And it happened in this, and it peeved me. It made me mad because they were doing fine, and Aoki's reason for getting mad at Ida didn't make a lick of sense. I like that the more we progress in the different volumes, we're getting to see more of the side characters. So obviously we have Hashimoto and Ada, but then we also get to meet more of Ida's friends like Shun, who I think seems like a good guy and is fun. He's the only one who knows that Aoki and Ida's relationship is real on Ida's friend group. And then of course Hashimoto and Ada know that Ida and Aoki are together. Then we wrap things up in volume 5, which had a little bit more of a focus on Ada and Hashimoto's relationship. We got to see sort of the Valentine's Day of it all, of her like making treats for him, and he is like, I only want Valentine's Day gifts from you. Make up your mind, playa. She confessed you rejected her, but you only want Valentine's Day gifts from her and no other girls? Make up your mind, friend. It's like, what are we waiting for? Because there's obviously a connection, you know? I did pull out a quote from these for every single volume, so I will read them all out to you now. From volume 1, it opens with a note from the mangaka who says, "This is a slightly silly love story about some good, eager high school kids," which I thought was cute. From volume 2, we have, "You should agonize about it more, at least as much as I have. So that way you can feel how much I've been suffering. If you know, you know." Then from volume 3, "How about we try dating?" From volume 4, "When I see you like that, it makes my chest feel tight. I don't think of you as just a friend. I like you." Confessions. And then finally in volume 5, "I guess that's another way to think about it. I want to care for people who care about me." Wholesome, fun, cute BL romance rom-com. It is genuinely a funny manga. And then lastly, I did start Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies in July, but I did not finish it, and I am still reading it in August. So I will include Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies in my August wrap-up video at the end of the month. This has been very long, but that has been an in-depth, spoiler-filled review of all of the books that I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have opinions on the books that I read this month or have any thoughts on my thoughts, please leave me a comment down below so that we can keep the discourse going about these books that I read. And if you think any of my takes are hot takes, tell me. I love to argue and disagree. Don't forget to like this video if you like this video. Subscribe if you have not. And I'll see you when I see you.